Hey y'all, this is episode number 9. Going to be talking about Iran and Venezuela, so this is a warning for the language that is used. It's not quite as bad as the first Venezuela episode, but there is some choice words thrown in throughout, so fair warning. Once again, thank you to Flavor Aid, who created the song that you're about to hear. They have their EP release party on May 31st of this month at Stubbs here in Austin, Texas. And their new single, Ghost in Me, is available on Spotify and all streaming services. What's up, y'all? This is the Sovereign Individual Podcast. My name is Eric Guerra, and I am your host. Welcome back. Appreciate you listening. If you're enjoying this podcast so far, please subscribe, rate, and review it. That helps a lot with growth as I'm trying to build this up and be a little more active on social media and whatnot to try to see if we can't get this thing growing. Also, share it with friends or family if you think it would be something up their alley. If they, you might know some crazy liberty-minded people, some crazy libertarians who, might like hearing all this as well. So if you could do that for me, it'd be much appreciated. And today is probably going to be another one where I get pretty angry. We're going to talk about Iran and Venezuela. So Venezuela has already come back up. I know we talked about that before, but there's some new things that happened that we're going to talk about with that. Talk about the increasing escalation of activities in regards to Iran and how Bolton is attempting to beat the drums for war there as well. So a lot going on, a lot that really gets me pissed off and I'm going to get angry about. So, fair warning as far as that goes. So let's just start in Venezuela. Over this past weekend, there's a failed coup attempt, which was being somewhat reported on, although the bar testimony kind of took over for it because shockingly the corporate media was more concerned with, they're still talking about the whole Russia thing, although now it's amazing how quickly they moved the goalpost and completely changed their tune, where now it's about obstruction, whether or not there was obstruction of justice on Trump's part. No, collusion was never part of it. It was never about collusion. It was about obstructing of justice. But that's a topic for another time. But I think one of the main reasons why they didn't report on it more than they did is because the coup failed. And Maduro is still in power. So there was an attempted coup to get Juan Guaido in there as the president and to overthrow Maduro, and it failed. You may have seen there was really only one image that they were able to use because it wasn't really, I think, thankfully, Bolton was lied to, or the situation to him was misrepresented to him about how much opposition there truly was and how ready they were to step up and try to overthrow Maduro. Luckily, shocking that Bolton's wrong about something when it comes to war as well. We'll talk about that more later. And obviously, we can look at his track record, and it's not very good when it comes to this kind of stuff. So, he's pretty high on my list of people that I absolutely despise. That sentient mustache is a real lowly human being, in my humble opinion. So, the coup failed. There was the one image that you probably saw, which again is kind of it can be used both ways, as far as from a liberty standpoint. You saw it wasn't a tank, it was like an armored truck basically that was driving into a crowd of protesters, which again, a lot of people within the liberty movement were showing that image and saying this is why you don't allow a government to disarm you, which is a very fair point, and very true. Like that's inherently what tends to happen when the government are the only people with guns. So, but also on the same token, you can also use that same image to say this is the only image that was coming out of this supposed coup. There was a few other images of like people out in the streets protesting, but nothing quite as I guess shocking or stomach turning as seeing something like that. So it really kind of just showed how minor this thing was, and how it wasn't really a true coup, and there wasn't quite this massive support. And part of the reason for that is because the United States can't get out of its own damn way. Venezuela's been propped up as like an example of why socialism fails and why socialism is a horrible thing. And in a lot of ways, rightfully so. They completely the oil production part of the economy is completely state-owned and state-controlled. There's a lot of reasons to hold up Venezuela as an example of this is why those within the liberty movement, libertarians, hate the idea of socialism. Like that's a big reason. But the problem with Venezuela and with the United States, and why you didn't see the coup that you thought you were going to see, or that Bolton thought that they were going to see, is because we can't get out of our own way. The U.S. has imposed sanctions, economic sanctions on Venezuela that has resulted in the death of 40,000 people. And now it's known that the U.S. is attempting to overthrow the government and doing everything it can to do that. So, of course, the people of Venezuela, even if they hate Maduro, they're like, no, fuck the United States. They don't get to come in here and do that. Like, they're not going to be the one. We're not going to have our government overthrown and influenced by a foreign power, and they get to make the decision on us. And so, yeah, of course there wasn't this massive coup. Like, even though Maduro is incredibly unpopular, the people of Venezuela know what's going on. They get it. They see that the United States has done things that has resulted in the death of 40,000 of their countrymen. So it's not shocking at all that this coup attempt failed, and that there wasn't the huge amount of support that people thought they were. We're going to come back to that later, but sanctions are bullshit and should never be used. So basically the coup attempt failed over the weekend. And again, it kind of comes back to, America can't get out of its own way is a big problem of it, and which was really frustrating as somebody who's a libertarian and who doesn't like socialism, because you're giving them an out. You're giving the socialist government of Venezuela an out. They get to point at the United States and say, no, they're the reason why you're starving to death. They're the reason why all this bad stuff is happening. They're the reason why our economy's in the gutter, and they get to use that as an excuse for why socialism isn't inherently bad, or doesn't always result in that. And people around the world get to use that argument and get to point to it. And so it's super frustrating from a liberty standpoint. One, because I don't believe the state should be able to decide that kind of outcome for our own citizens, let alone the citizens of another country. They absolutely have the right of self-ownership and self-determination. But two, then it makes it a hell of a lot harder for me to make my arguments against socialism with a country like that, because it didn't fall entirely of its own volition. The United States government played a huge part in messing with it in an attempt to try to get Maduro out of there. So super frustrating on both of those counts as far as when it comes to Venezuela. But when we're talking about Venezuela and the hard-on that John Bolton has for the war there, again, it's, why Venezuela? Why is it Brazil is going through a bunch of economic turmoil as well? Why aren't we interested in going into Brazil? You could pick a region of the world, and there's countries there that you could say that why are the United States not involved? You could look at Central American countries as well, that are having similar economic turmoil. I'm kind of just trying to stick to this region because Bolton tries to use the argument of like it's our backyard and therefore we have a right to be involved, which is bullshit as well. So why Venezuela though? And we talked about this before, and it was in the second episode that I talked about it. But I'm gonna let John Bolton tell you exactly why, because he told us all exactly why. So this is an interview he did with Fox News. So let's listen in.
Yeah, look, we're in conversation with major American companies now that are either in Venezuela or, in the case of Citgo, here in the United States. I think we're trying to get to the same end result here. Venezuela is one of the three countries I call the troika of tyranny. It'll make a big difference to the United States economically if we could have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of the United States. We both have a lot at stake here, making this come out the right way.
There it is. There it fucking is. Oil. At least, as big of a piece of shit as that sentient mustache is, I'll at least give him credit that he just came straight out and said, yeah, it's oil. That's the exact reason that we want this to go down the way that we're trying to make it go down. So I guess I can give a little bit of credit in that regard, but good God, to have the audacity to just come out and admit, yeah, we want bloodshed strictly for oil. That's just sociopathic. It's insane. He said it straight up in an interview, and no qualms about it. And it's what we all knew. Those of us who have been watching this and paying attention and talking about it, it's exactly what we thought it was. It's just crazy now that it's gotten to a point where he doesn't even feel that he has to hide it or lie or try to come up with some other reason. There's such little thought for the American public and their intelligence or the amount that they pay attention or how much they care about this, that they're just going to be like, yeah, we're just going to come out and say it. We're trying to go to war for oil. Goodness gracious, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. But one good thing to come out of this, to come out of the failed coup, is that it looks like now that war with Venezuela is no longer on the table. Trump was apparently very upset with what occurred over the weekend. He felt that he was misled by Bolton about how easy it was going to be to oust Maduro and get Guaido in there. And so there's one possible good thing. So this is from the website theweek.com, and this is actually, they're quoting the Post, who is reporting that Trump is now not inclined to order any sort of military intervention in Venezuela after the failed effort and the failed coup. So thankfully, that's one good thing to come out of this, is that it looks like, at least in this regard, Trump is taking the right position and realizing that John Bolton is a war-hawking piece of shit, and it really goes against the entire anti-interventionist policy and anti-interventionist line of thinking that Trump ran under, for 2016. And again, he's backtracked on pulling the troops out of Syria and Afghanistan, which is incredibly unfortunate. But there at least hasn't, and he's dropped more bombs. I mean, again, as with Obama, as with George W. Bush, as with name a president, almost. I think I was literally going back in my head trying to determine it. I think Jimmy Carter is the last president that legitimately is not a war criminal. But just like all of our previous war criminal presidents, I think that Trump should actually absolutely be brought up on charges of that, which is a offense in the United States. Like, being a war criminal is illegal in U.S. law. So I'm not trying to defend Trump in any way. I will say that as far as it's anti-interventionist rhetoric during the campaign, which was encouraging, and while we haven't really seen the pulling back of troops and getting us out of wars, he, at least for the time being, has not started any new ones. So that is one positive thing I could also say in this regard. So it looks like, at least, and we know it's Trump, so his mind could change tomorrow. But as it stands right now, it looks like any sort of military intervention is off the table in Venezuela, which is huge and very important. So, which brings us to Iran. So John Bolton is barely even done licking his wounds on the Venezuela, and realizing that Trump is getting frustrated with him and his outlook on wanting to go to war with every single brown country that he could possibly go to war with, and realizing that he needs to get back in the president's good graces, he shifted his focus to Iran. So this is from antiwar.com, and it was actually from the 6th, which would have been, was it, let's say the 9th, so Monday, I guess, yeah, Monday, the 6th. So John Bolton announced yesterday, so that would have been Sunday the 5th, the U.S. was deploying a carrier strike force to the Middle East to convey the message to Iran that the U.S. does not want war. Let me say that again. To prove that the United States does not want war, we're sending a carrier strike group to the Middle East. Hey, we don't really want war, but we're going to park this carrier strike group that can fire Tomahawk missiles into your country at leisure and level, whatever we want, whatever target we decide we want to level in your country. But we don't want war. We're just parking them out there because we want to show you that we don't want war. It's batshit insane. And then also, my immediate thought was, are they going to try to use a false flag operation to draw us into war? It's a strategy that's already been used by the United States military and used effectively in the Gulf of Tonkin for the Vietnam War. They lied about the events that occurred there and lied us into a war in Vietnam, a disastrous war, a war that we lost. And absolutely, it's one of those things where I say something like that and a lot of people are just like, nah, I mean, you think they would do that? You think that they're capable? Yes, we've seen them do it. I've seen it in my lifetime. They lied us into the war in Iraq. There's nothing they're not capable of. There's nothing that they would not be willing to. There's no level they're not willing to stoop to feed the military-industrial complex and to feed the war machine. So absolutely, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if some kind of attack occurs on one of those ships that's part of that carrier strike group, in order to try to goad the opinion of the American public to be in support of a war with Iran. So disturbing, to say the least, is how much of a hard-on John Bolton has for a war with Iran. He's been trying. He's wanted this war forever. He wanted it back during the Bush administration, and it's come out. It's known that there was a 7-country hit list basically that they had that they wanted to topple the regimes of and to go to war with, and Iran was on that list. So of course, John Bolton's now trying to do everything he can to draw us into a war with them. And the military buildup there has resulted, U.S. officials, this is also from antiwar.com, and this was an article from yesterday, and John Bolton claimed that Iran was plotting a sneak attack on the U.S. And U.S. officials are now kind of backtracking and conceding that was exaggerating the threat to justify the buildup. But they're still using the language that we're trying to put maximum pressure on Iran, and that Iran has had some changes to its nuclear activity, quote unquote, that violates international norms. So we're going to talk about that real quick. So what exactly is it that Iran was doing what are these changes that they're talking about? So basically, they're just dialing back parts of the commitment to the 2015 nuclear deal, which again, foolishly, Trump reneged on a year ago and pulled us out of. And so in basically, it's not even it's not even so they're making it sound as if Iran is doing hostile things against international norms. So reducing a commitment to the deal, they're not selling the excess enriched uranium and heavy water. So they're permitted to possess 330 kilograms of enriched uranium, and before the deal they had 22,000 kilograms. So that's what they're allowed, 330 kilograms. And so to meet the deal's conditions, they're supposed to sell or deliver the excess uranium and heavy water to other countries. And so they haven't even said what they plan on doing. Iran is expected to soon send a technical document to the 5 remaining signatories, since the United States withdrew, in which it would detail its plans for the excess uranium. and what the amounts are and what further steps. So basically, what the United States and John Bolton are trying to say, what U.S. officials are trying to say, is that they're acting outside of international norms. Literally, all they're doing is preparing a technical document to tell them what it plans to do with the excess uranium and what the amounts of the excess uranium are. Like that's insane. That's trying to be used as a reason of like, oh yeah, I mean, look at what Iran's doing. They're trying to, they're not acting within international norms, and they're changing their nuclear policy. There's no indication yet that is occurring. They're preparing a technical document to send to the 5 remaining signatories, and basically, kind of the strategic turnabout is to try to entice the European powers who are still part of the deal to not participate in the U.S.-backed sanctions against Iran and to work to try to lift them, because Iran has been doing everything that they agreed to in the deal, and the only thing that changed was President Trump reneging on it. So now, in an attempt to try to, hey, can y'all not participate because we're doing everything that we need to do? So it's a diplomatic strategy, if anything, just trying to entice the European powers to work with Iran on this and to not just automatically back the U.S. sanctions that are going to be coming down. So also, by the way, there's a clause in the Iran deal that lets them take steps like this if one party withdraws. So again, this goes back to the fact that Trump reneged on this. So this is a direct result of that. There's a lot of problems I had with Obama's presidency and administration, but this was not one of them. This was a good thing. The Iran deal was a good thing. The whole idea that how long have we been told that Iran is 2 years away from a nuclear warhead? Because I remember hearing that around the same time as Iraq War II started back in 2003. I remember hearing that then, because that they were trying to build up. Okay, we're going to take down Iraq. We go in Afghanistan, we take them out. We go in Iraq, we take them out. Then we're going to go to Iran and take them out. So I remember hearing it back then. And we're now 16 years later. So, yeah, that whole idea. But let's talk about another big reason, besides the fact that Bolton's had a hard-on for trying to do this forever. Let's talk about a real big reason why. Russia and China. Those are big, huge reasons why this is becoming an issue. China and Russia have investment plans for Iran that are worth billions of dollars, and want to help. They're intending to prop up Iran economically, both of which are doing this as a means of gaining some influence in the region. Neither of them really have a strong influential foothold within the region, and they're just attempting to kind of match what the United States has with Israel. We have a huge influence in the region through Israel, and both China and Russia are attempting to do the same by basically propping up Iran economically and planning to do so. So, of course, that can't be allowed to happen. We would rather level the entire country, kill tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not into the millions of people in a war, than allow for China or Russia to dare have any sort of influence in the region. It's insane that we feel that I'm really trying to stop doing that. It's insane that the United States government feels that it is the only one entitled to have any sort of influence in any area of the world whatsoever. And that influence comes through bloodshed and war and death. And toppling democratically elected governments. Because let's not forget, we didn't learn our lesson with Iran, apparently, because we're trying to meddle in it again. Let's not forget that in 1953, we overthrew a democratically elected government in Iran to reinstate the previous Shah, who ruled over it as a dictator for 25 years until the Iranian Revolution in the 70s. Let's not forget that the United States did that. The CIA orchestrated that. They admitted to that in 2013. We didn't learn our lesson, apparently, about meddling in situations like this. That you have people with no skin in the game that want so badly to go to war with people, with other countries. It's sick. It's absolutely sick. And so why does this really matter? Why does it all matter so much? Why do I get so... Part of why I get so passionate about this, why it makes me so angry, and why I care so deeply about this is an atonement on my part. When I was younger, 9/11 happened. I was 11 years old. It greatly influenced how I thought about the world. I was decided on that day I was going to join the military and serve in that regard, and I just wanted to do everything I could to make sure that never happened again. I remember being 13 years old and cheering when Iraq War II started, and being happy when we were seeing the images of Tomahawk missile explosions in Baghdad. And now, 16 years later, and just looking back on that, I feel awful that was something I was happy about, that was something I was excited about, that I viewed that as a positive thing. I mean, just imagine having a Tomahawk missile explode in your neighborhood. It just rains down from the sky out of nowhere and blows up a building or whatever it is nearby, killing people killing your family members, killing your friends. And that's what these pieces of shit like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo want. They don't care about the lives lost. And there's a episode this past week on Game of Thrones. There's a conversation that occurs between two characters, and there's a line that I'm going to play right now that really stuck with me and really reminded me of everything that's going on right now. So these two characters it's Tyrion and Varys, for those who watch the show. For those who don't, they're two advisors to this queen, and they're talking about, there's a war going on to try to get her back, or get her onto the throne, to rule over the land, and they're just discussing whether she's even the best choice. There's another character who has a better claim, and so they're discussing that. And Varys has always said that his loyalties lie with the realm. That's what is referred to as kind of the island that they live on is called Westeros, but people will kind of just refer to it as the realm. And so he says his loyalties are always with the realm. And so they're talking here about that, and I'm just gonna let it play.
I will never betray the realm.
What is the realm?
A vast continent, home to millions of people, most of whom don't care who sits on the Iron Throne.
Millions of people, many of whom will die if the wrong person sits on that throne. We don't know their names, but they're just as real as you and I. They deserve to live. They deserve food for their children. I will act in their interest, no matter the personal cost.
So that was, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh man. And that's kind of goes back, yeah, like the atonement thing and where I'm at now. We don't know their names, but they have every right to live that you and I have. They have every right to happiness that you and I have. They have every right to live their life as they best see fit and to do what's best for them and their children and to just work to try to make sure their family's fed and that they're, all taken care of and they're able to live. They have every right to that. And we do not have the right to take that from them. The United States government does not have the right to take that from them. It does not have the right to meddle in the affairs of other countries and determine for them what their life is going to be like, whether or not there's going to be violence rained down upon them. Because of bullshit. It's talked about in Tyrion says 2 million people who don't care who sits on the throne. Yeah, for the most part, a lot of people don't, and that's fine. But you've got these sociopathic assholes who get in these positions of power and start playing these games, and they're just treating humans as if they're pawns, and as if they're just expendable. I was talking about the sanctions earlier and how bullshit they are. 40,000 people have died in Venezuela. Let's not forget how the United States sanctioned killed 500,000 children in Iraq, and Madeleine Albright referred to that as worth it. These are the type of sociopathic, insane people that we're dealing with here, that get elected into these positions of power and then are able to use that power to bring destruction and death upon people throughout the world. People that we don't know. We don't know their name. We don't know their story. We don't know anything about them. But what I do know is, just as Vera said, they absolutely deserve every single right afforded to us. And especially in the days of right now with the internet and interconnectivity and the way we're able to view everybody, view so much around the world. We're able to see videos and interact with people from around the world. And you realize, yeah, they're not that different. They're pretty much the same. They want the similar things. They just want to have a good life. They want to be able to eat and take care of their family. They want to try to find happiness in whatever way they can. That's the majority of the people. The tiny, minute minority are these sociopaths that want to bring death and destruction to other people. Yet somehow we keep allowing them to get these positions of power in which they can actually enact their sociopathic tendencies. And it's sick. And it pisses me off. And I hate the fact that at any point in time, I thought that bringing that type of destruction and war and death upon another group of people was a good thing and something acceptable and something worth being celebrated. So that's why I get so passionate about it now, because I was so mistaken for so long. And it pains me to see that we're allowing a person like John Bolton to try to lie us into another situation like this. That the media is complicit in it. They're trying to lie us into more wars. It's a popular saying within the liberty movement and within libertarianism is, I'm already against the next war. And it's absolutely true. It's I mean, yeah, it's no wonder that the state of the world is so bad in so many ways, when you've got an entity like the United States, an empire, that's acting in an imperialist way and bringing that kind of death and destruction upon people, deciding that you know what, your government that you chose for yourself isn't right, so we're going to come in, we're going to bring violence, and we're going to put in who we want. Damned if they're going to be good for your country or not. They're who we want. Damned if there's going to be open air slave markets like in Libya. Gaddafi didn't want to listen to us, so we had to get rid of him. So that's pretty much it, I guess, at this point. That's all I ask of anybody listening is to remember that those are people. They have names just like you and I. They have interests. They have hobbies. They have wants. They have desires. They have dreams. They have children. And nobody has a right to rain down fire and death upon them because they don't like their ruler, or they don't like their government, or their government doesn't play ball with our government, so we're going to get rid of them, and we're going to kill a lot of you innocent people in the process. It's disgusting. So that's it. They're people, and I just ask that you remember that. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back on Monday with another episode. Y'all have a good one.